class. I'm Marilyn Laura, and the claim I'm responding to was made by Kurt Bennett. He said that the war on drugs has had a significant negative effect on the U.S. To support this, he used three secondary claims. The first one was that the war on drugs wastes money. The second one was that the war on drugs has made the U.S. a more dangerous place. And the last one was that the war on drugs ruins lives. My response to this claim is that the war on drugs has greatly benefited the U.S. in many ways. In his first claim, he said that the war on drugs wastes money. He says this very plainly. There's no really a good solid definition for waste money. It could mean different things to different people. The money spent on drug prevention could be worth to some people. If you compare the money spent on drug prevention to everything else the government spends money on, drug prevention is a very small portion. According to the Institute for Policy Studies, the U.S. Treasury divides all federal spending into three groups: mandatory spending, discretionary spending, and interest on debt spending. Drug prevention falls under the discretionary spending, which is $1.11 trillion. Now, compared to mandatory spending, which is $2.45 trillion, and interest on debt spending is $229 billion. The U.S. spends more. The U.S. actually spends more money on treating prescription painkiller addiction than treating illegal drug users. According to the Harvard economist Jeffrey A. Myron, we spend about $72 billion every year on treating prescription painkiller addicts. In his second claim, he says that the war on drugs has made the U.S. a more dangerous place. To support this, he says that prohibition has increased the value of drugs, and prohibition has caused drug manufacturers to produce much more potent drugs. He did not well document these claims. He had no examples nor data. My counterclaim to this is that the war on drugs has actually made the U.S. a more safer place. According to the healthresearchfunding.org, crimes done by drug addicts will lessen since the distribution is highly prohibited. The number of crimes committed by drug addicts will decrease. This will also help in decreasing the crimes and are related to drug usage. His third claim was that war on drugs ruins lives. To support this, he kind of made it sound that if you seek out help, you automatically get arrested or penalized. This is actually not true. If you need help, you can easily go to a rehabilitation center and that you get the help you need. Also, to support his claim, he said that due to prohibition, the only way to get additional treatment for many people is to be arrested. I wouldn't say this claim necessarily supports it, because for most people, the only way they get the help they need is because of prohibition. Getting help will ultimately help people's lives and not ruin them. To conclude, the war on drugs has not had a significant negative effect on the U.S., but with the continuation of the war on drugs, we can reach a drug-free community that will ultimately greater benefit the U.S.
All right, the structural stuff's all fine at the beginning. On your first point concerning the argument that they made that it's a waste of money, you basically try to diminish this argument by challenging there isn't any criteria for what waste means. And I do think that you have a good contradictory point here. You know, some of the money that we spend on this is to help fight addictions to opioids and other kinds of issues, and your argument is that that's making a difference, which I think is the right answer to be making here. I think that you kind of limit it a little bit to the one specific benefit. I think there are probably some others that could be argued as well. And you also try to diminish it when it comes to how much money we're actually spending by putting it into a context. I thought that was okay. That was an okay argument as well. I don't know how much emphasis that the advocate put on what the total percentage was, or what they suggested that we were foregoing as a result of having spent the money this way. But I think your argument is a good preclusion on further development of that unless they provided more specific information. On the increased danger issue, you challenge directly the lack of data that the advocate has. I think it's a little problematic that you are also lacking some data, and the one piece of data that you have on this particular point suggests that you read this evidence about what the crime spending is supposed to do and what it's supposed to work. It really sounds like this is a goal of the spending bill that you're talking about, not necessarily the result of the spending bill. And I think that that's what the advocate's talking about, that we're not getting the results from what the goals are. So they don't have particular information that demonstrates their point. Your information is a little ambiguous on the point, but I would say if we were, playing a game, it's like one of those things where, a pair of twos beats, nothing. And so if you got a pair of twos, at least it's a better argument than not having anything. And then the argument about ruining lives, you're kind of dancing around the point. I do think that you have a good argument here that says, look, without the prohibition, people who are abusing drugs and have problems with it would never get the help they have, or would less likely get the help they have. I think you could tie that back up to the argument that you're making on the second point, or the first point about the opioids and that sort of thing. So, look, these folks aren't going to get any help if we don't spend this money this way, and if we don't have this policy. Then there's some kind of grandiose advantages that you're talking about there that I didn't really think there was a lot of proof on. But again, make the argument that you've got in front of you and do the best you can on it. All right, thank you.